They were talking about me again. I could hear them through the mercantile window. Mrs. Patterson's voice carrying that particular pitch women use when their pretending concern masks judgment. Sophia Hartwell thinks she's going to open a store. Won't that be something to watch? I kept walking, my reticule heavy with the insurance papers. $800. That's what my husband's life had been worth to the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. 8 months of grief reduced to a number I'd checked 3 times because it seemed both too much and nowhere near enough. Emma walked beside me, 16 and already learning to keep her eyes forward when people whispered. I hated that she was learning this. The kitchen table that night became my battlefield. I spread out the ledgers I'd kept for Thomas, the ones where I'd done all the actual accounting while he'd smiled and shaken hands and been the face everyone trusted. The numbers had always been mine. The credit had always been his. "Mama, your coffee's getting cold." Emma set a fresh cup beside my elbow, steam curling in the lamplight. "Thank you, sweetheart." I didn't look up from the calculations, inventory costs, rental estimates, profit margins accounting for seasonal fluctuation. The plan was sound. I knew it was sound the way I knew the sun would rise, with absolute certainty that everyone would ignore anyway. The first door closed with Mr. Davies, the landlord. He had a vacant storefront on Main Street, good location, reasonable rent. He'd smiled when I inquired, right up until I explained I wanted to lease it myself. "Now, Mrs. Hartwell, I don't mean any offense, but a woman alone." He trailed off like the sentence finished itself. "Perhaps if you had a man to co-sign, or your father." My father's been dead 12 years, and I'm the one with the capital and the business plan. "I'm sure you are, ma'am, but I can't in good conscience." I left before he could finish. No sense wasting breath on walls. Mr. Hutchins at the dry goods warehouse was more direct. "Your husband, God rest him. I'd have extended credit without blinking. Fine man, Thomas. But I can't do the same for you, Mrs. Hartwell. Nothing personal." Everything was personal. That was the part they never understood. The first banker, old Mr. Carmichael, didn't even read my proposal. Just set it aside and folded his hands like a grandfather about to explain basic arithmetic to a child. "Women don't understand business, Mrs. Hartwell. It's not an insult, it's simply nature. You're better suited to keeping a home, raising your daughter. Let the men handle commerce." I'd stopped crying after the second no. By the 5th, I'd stopped expecting anything different, but I hadn't stopped planning. That evening, Emma found me still at the table, lamp oil running low, my eyes burning from staring at numbers that kept being right while everyone kept being wrong. "Mama," her voice was small, "why do they treat you like you're stupid?" I looked at my daughter, bright, sharp, already better with figures than half the men in this town. And I had no answer that wouldn't break something in her. How do you explain that competence doesn't matter if you're born female? That intelligence is irrelevant when measured against the shape of your body? "I don't know, honey, but they're wrong." "I know they're wrong, so why do they keep doing it?" "Because they've never been forced to stop." She sat down across from me, candlelight catching the determination in her jaw. Thomas's jaw, my stubbornness. "What are you gonna do?" I looked at the papers, the careful calculations, the detailed inventory plans. I thought about giving up. The thought lasted maybe 3 seconds. "There's a new bank manager, just arrived from Boston, Mr. Arthur Brennan." I'd heard about him at the post office, young, formal, educated. Probably wouldn't be any different than the others, but I had one application left in me. "Are you hopeful?" Emma asked. I wasn't. Hope's expensive, and I'd spent my budget on it already. But I was stubborn, and stubborn's free. Stubborn had gotten me through Thomas's death, through the whispers, through every closed door. Stubborn would get me through one more. "I'm going to try," I said. "That's all I can do." Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her grip was strong, certain. She believed I could do this. I couldn't let her learn, not yet, that sometimes belief isn't enough. But sometimes, just sometimes, It's enough to keep you trying. I watched him through the bank window for 10 minutes before I went in, learning what I could from observation. Mr. Arthur Brennan stood behind the counter with his back straight as a ruler, reviewing documents with the kind of attention most people reserved for prayer. He wore an Eastern suit, charcoal wool that had never seen prairie dust, and his collar was so starched I wondered if it cut his neck. When he spoke to Mr. Henderson about his farm loan, his voice was polite but impersonal, professional. He didn't lean in with frontier familiarity or ask after Henderson's wife by name. Just reviewed the terms, explained the interest, shook hands with businesslike efficiency. Different. Then. Whether different enough remained to be seen. The bank smelled of ink and leather and old wood. My shoes clicked on the floor with more confidence than I felt. Mr. Brennan looked up, and his eyes were gray, the color of steel, or storm clouds, or decisions not yet made. "May I help you, ma'am?" I set my proposal on the counter between us. 20 pages, detailed down to the cost of lamp oil. "I'd like to apply for a business loan, $400. Something flickered across his face. Surprise? Maybe. Or assessment. He looked at the papers, then at me. "Your name, please?" "Sophia Hartwell." He wrote it down in a ledger with neat, precise script. Then, and this was different, he actually opened my proposal, started reading. His eyes moved across the first page, then the second. The silence stretched like taffy. I watched his face for tells. Thomas had taught me that, back when he'd let me sit in on business meetings. "Watch their eyes, Sophia. Eyes always tell you what the mouth won't." Mr. Brennan's eyes were focused, critical but not dismissive. He turned to page 3, my inventory analysis. Page 4, seasonal fluctuation projections. He was actually reading it. "You've accounted for the harvest cycle," he said, not a question, an observation. "Yes. September through November will be strongest months. January and February weakest. I've calculated inventory accordingly." He turned another page. "Your profit margins assume you can undercut Hutchins by 15%. What makes you confident you can source inventory at these rates?" My heart did something strange, a flutter that wasn't quite fear. He was asking real questions, testing my plan, not my gender. "I've identified 3 suppliers in Kansas City willing to work with smaller orders. Their wholesale rates are lower because they don't have Hutchins's overhead. I've included their correspondence in the appendix." He flipped to the back, found the letters, scanned them, nodded once. We went through it like that for 20 minutes. Supply chains, competitive analysis, customer demographic assumptions. He challenged my numbers, and I defended them with the confidence of someone who'd checked them 17 times. Every answer I gave, he considered. Actually considered. When we reached the end, he set the proposal down carefully, aligned it with the edge of the counter. His hands were clean, nails trimmed, banker's hands that had never swung an axe or birthed the calf. "Your plan is sound, Mrs. Hartwell." He met my eyes when he said it. "But I'll need to present it to the board. They'll have..." He paused, and in that pause, I heard everything. "Questions. About my qualifications? About precedent." At least he was honest. That counted for something. "When will the board meet?" "Friday. I'll send word after." I nodded, gathering my proposal. His hand moved, stopped, then carefully pushed the papers back toward me. "Keep your copy. I'll work from my notes." "Thank you, Mr. Brennan." He inclined his head, formal and distant as winter, but he'd read my numbers. That was more than anyone else had done. Outside, Emma was waiting by the post office, pretending to read the community notices. She fell in step beside me, not asking until we were out of earshot. "Well?" He read it, actually read it. And he has to present it to the board. They'll have questions. I tried to keep the bitterness from my voice, failed. Emma was quiet for a block, then, "Was he different?" I thought about those gray eyes moving across my calculations, the technical questions, the way he called my plan sound. Different enough to read my numbers, not different enough to ignore I'm a woman who wrote them. I don't know yet, sweetheart, I don't know. The summons came on Tuesday. Mr. Brennan's handwriting, neat as his collar. Mrs. Hartwell, please attend the bank Wednesday at 2 p.m. A. Brennan. I wore my best dress, black wool, because I was still in mourning and because it made me look serious. Pinned my hair tight enough to give me a headache. Emma wanted to come, but I made her stay home. Whatever was about to happen, she didn't need to watch. Mr. Brennan's office was small, window facing the street. He stood when I entered, gestured to a chair. The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly the room felt even smaller. Mrs. Hartwell, he sat, hands folded on the desk. The board voted on your application. My stomach dropped. I kept my face still. They voted no, 4-1. Of course they did. Of course. I should have known better than to. I was the one. I looked up. He was watching me with those storm cloud eyes, and something in them was almost apologetic, almost angry, not at me. You voted yes. I did. Your plan is financially sound. Your calculations are conservative, which suggests good judgment. Your collateral is adequate. There is no fiscal reason to deny the loan. But they denied it anyway. They did. He paused, and I watched him choose his words carefully. They expressed concerns about precedent. If the bank extends credit to a woman, it sets a standard they're not comfortable establishing. So that was it. Not my numbers, not my plan, just the basic fact of my existence in a category they decided didn't deserve capital. I stood. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brennan. Please sit. Something in his voice made me hesitate, not a request, an opening. I sat. He opened a drawer, withdrew a different form. I have discretionary authority to approve loans up to $500 without board consent. The terms would be stricter, 6 months instead of 12, higher interest rate, monthly reviews instead of quarterly. My heart started beating faster. How much? $400. Exactly what I'd asked for. My hands went cold. Why? Because your plan is sound, and denying capital to qualified borrowers based on sex is poor business practice. He slid the form across the desk. This is a business decision, Mrs. Hartwell. If you succeed, the bank profits. If you fail, I accept responsibility for the loss. I stared at the paper, $400. 6 months to prove every man in this town wrong, 6 months to prove myself right. If I failed, I proved them all correct. Women couldn't handle business. If I succeeded, do you believe I can do this? The question escaped before I could stop it. He met my eyes, and for the first time his expression shifted to something almost warm. Not quite a smile, but close. I believe your numbers can. Whether you will is your choice to make. That was fair, more than fair. He was offering me a chance, not a guarantee. The rest was mine to earn or lose. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady when I signed my name. We shook on it. His grip was firm, impersonal, professional. This was business. Business, I understood. Walking home, the sun felt warmer than it had in months. $400, 6 months, half the capital I'd wanted, twice the determination I'd need. Emma was waiting on the porch. Mama? I smiled, really smiled, for the first time since Thomas died. We're opening a store. She flew down the steps and wrapped her arms around me, and I held my daughter and thought, 6 months. I can make 6 months work. I had to. The store took shape like a quilt, one piece at a time. Each fitted carefully to the next. Mr. Davies grudgingly rented me the space once I showed him the bank loan document. Arthur Brennan's signature carried weight, even if mine didn't. I arranged the interior the way I'd arranged our home, by logic and efficiency. Dry goods near the door for quick purchases. Fabric bolts in good light by the window. Hardware in the back where men would have to walk past household items to reach it. Every inch calculated for maximum use. Emma worked beside me, learning commerce through action. I showed her how to calculate markup, how to track inventory, how to smile at customers even when they treated you like you were simple. "Why do we have to be nicer than Mr. Hutchins?" she asked, after a particularly condescending farmer had questioned my measurement of rope. "Because he can afford to be rude. We can't, not yet." The first week, we mostly had browsers. People came to look at the woman foolish enough to open a store, stayed to see if I actually knew what I was doing. I measured carefully, gave honest prices, kept my ledgers immaculate. Mr. Brennan stopped by on Tuesday, ostensibly to check his investment. He walked through slowly, examining my layout, my stock organization, my pricing.
"You've arranged everything by frequency of purchase,"
he observed.
"Makes for faster transactions. People appreciate not wasting time."
He nodded, made a note in a small leather book.
"How's your inventory turn?"
"Higher than I projected. I underestimated how many people would buy just to say they did." A flicker of something crossed his face. Amusement, maybe.
"Curiosity is profitable."
"Only if they come back."
"Will they?"
I gestured to my pricing board. "I'm 15% under Hutchins for equivalent quality. If they're buying from principle instead of price, they'll go back to him. If they're buying from sense, they'll return." He studied the board. "You're cutting your margins thin." "Building customer base. Margins can grow once I have loyalty." He made another note, and I found myself wondering what he wrote in that little book, whether he was tracking my success or my mistakes. Emma appeared from the back with the broom. "Mr. Brennan, would you like coffee? Mama just made a pot." He glanced at me, and I shrugged. "I keep a pot going. Customers appreciate it. Feel free." He accepted, and I watched him hold the tin cup with the same careful precision he held everything else, took one sip, and his eyebrows rose slightly. "This is excellent coffee." "Thank you. My mother's recipe, cardamom and a pinch of salt." We stood there in slightly awkward silence, him drinking coffee, me pretending to organize the notions display I'd already organized twice. "Why Kansas?" I asked, because the silence was becoming obvious. "Pardon? You're from Boston. Why take a position in Kansas?" He considered the question, the way he considered loan applications, seriously. "Opportunity. Eastern banking is established, stratified. Here, there's room to prove new methods work." "New methods like lending to women?" His mouth almost curved. "Among other innovations." Emma was watching us with that too perceptive look she developed. I shot her a warning glance. She smiled innocently and went back to sweeping. The breakthrough came at the end of week 2. Mrs. Jensen, a ranch wife I recognized from church, bought calico for a dress, paid, left, then returned an hour later with 3 friends. "You measured correctly," Mrs. Jensen said, loud enough for the other browsers to hear. "Bought from Hutchins last month, and when I got home, I was short 2 yards. You gave me exactly what I paid for." Her friends bought fabric, thread, buttons. Word spread the way it does in small towns. One honest transaction multiplying into reputation. That night, tallying receipts, I realized I was ahead of my projections. Not by much, but enough. Emma leaned against the counter, watching me work. "You're good at this, Mama." I looked up at my daughter, saw pride in her eyes instead of the worry that had lived there since Thomas died. "I always was, sweetheart. Now, someone's letting me prove it." 3 months in. I walked into the bank with my quarterly report and found myself nervous in a way that had nothing to do with numbers. Arthur, I'd started thinking of him as Arthur, though I still called him Mr. Brennan aloud, reviewed my ledgers with the same careful attention he gave everything. His finger traced down columns, and I watched his face for tells. "You're ahead of projections," he said finally, "by 8%. "Yes." "Your inventory turn is higher than you estimated." People talk, good service spreads. He looked up, and something in his expression had shifted over these months. Less storm cloud, more. I didn't have words for it. Warmth, maybe. Approval. "The board has noticed. They're still not pleased I approved the loan, but they can't argue with profit. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt tired. Do I have to be perfect for them to admit I'm competent? The question surprised us both. I didn't usually let my guard down like that. Arthur set the ledger aside.
Mrs. Hartwell.
Sophia, if we're going to keep having coffee while you inspect my inventory management, you might as well use my name. His mouth did that almost curve thing. Sophia, may I ask you something? Yes? Do you ever tire of having to be perfect? The honesty of it hit me like a physical thing. I looked at this man who'd given me a chance when no one else would, who visited my store to learn instead of to judge, who asked real questions and listened to real answers. Every day, I admitted. They're watching for me to fail. One mistake proves them right. One mistake proves you're human. 30 correct decisions should outweigh that. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Should, doesn't. No, he agreed quietly. It doesn't, but it will, eventually. You're changing minds one transaction at a time. We stood there in the afternoon light, dust motes floating between us, and I realized something had shifted. This wasn't banker and client anymore. This was something else. Something that made my chest feel tight and warm simultaneously. You could have just said no, I said. That first day, you could have made your life much easier. I could have, he agreed. But then I'd be complicit in waste. Your business mind's too valuable to squander over superstition. Is that what it is? Superstition? What else would you call refusing to acknowledge evidence? He gestured to my ledgers. The numbers don't lie. You're a better merchant than half the men in this town. That's not opinion, it's arithmetic. I'd been so focused on proving myself to everyone, I hadn't noticed someone already believed me. The realization made something crack in my chest, something that had been frozen since Thomas died. Thank you, I said quietly. For seeing the numbers instead of just seeing me. I see both, he said, and the way he said it made my breath catch. The numbers tell me you're competent. Everything else tells me you're remarkable. Emma chose that exact moment to return from the post office, bursting through the door with mail and excitement. Arthur stepped back professionally, and the moment dissolved like sugar in water. But that night, after Emma went to bed, she knocked on my door. Mama, can I say something? Always. She sat on the edge of my bed, lamplight catching her face. Mr. Brennan looks at you different now. Emma. I'm not being silly. He looks at you the way Papa used to, like you make sense. I should have deflected, should have changed the subject. Instead, I heard myself say, people look different when they actually see you. Do you see him too? Did I? I thought about those gray eyes studying my inventory system, the way he listened when I explained business strategy, how he'd fought his board for me when I wasn't even in the room. I think I'm starting to, I admitted. Emma smiled and kissed my forehead. Good. You deserve someone who sees you. After she left, I lay in the dark thinking about deserve. I'd spent so long fighting for what I deserved, respect, opportunity, fairness, that I'd forgotten to think about what else I might want. But wanting was dangerous. Wanting meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant someone could hurt you. Still, the thought of those steady gray eyes made me smile into my pillow. Maybe, just maybe, deserving and wanting could be the same thing. The rumor started the way these things always do, a whisper that grew teeth. I first heard it from Mrs. Patterson, who came into the store with an expression of performative concern. Mrs. Hartwell, I feel I should tell you what people are saying, as a friend. We weren't friends, but I smiled politely. What are they saying, Mrs. Patterson? Well, there's talk about how you got that loan, about special arrangements with Mr. Brennan. My hands went cold around the bolt of fabric I was measuring. Special arrangements. You know how people talk. A young widow, a bachelor from the East, all that time he spends in your store. She trailed off meaningfully. I finished measuring, cut precisely, handed it to her with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. My arrangement with Mr. Brennan is called a business loan. The terms are standard, the interest is published, and my repayment record is impeccable. Anything else people are saying is slander. She flushed. I'm just telling you what I heard. And I appreciate your concern. I didn't. Will there be anything else? After she left, I stood very still, processing. This wasn't random gossip. Someone had started this deliberately, someone who wanted me to fail. The customers thinned over the next week. Not disappeared, but the steady stream became a trickle. People who'd praised my service now avoided my eyes. The whispers followed me to church, to the post office, down Main Street. Emma came home from school quiet, and I knew she'd heard it too. They're saying awful things, Mama. I know, sweetheart. But they're lies. Yes, but lies spread faster than truth, and they're easier to believe. Arthur came to the store on Friday, his face carefully neutral. Sophia, we need to talk. We went to the back room. He closed the door. The board is calling for an investigation. They want me to review the loan terms, verify there was no impropriety. There wasn't. My voice was flat. I know that. You know that. But perception matters. He ran a hand through his hair, disturbing his usual perfection. They're threatening to call the loan early. Some members are calling for my termination. I looked at this man who'd risked his career for principal, who was now facing consequences for daring to treat me fairly. You could distance yourself, I said quietly. Tell them you made an error in judgment. Call the loan. Protect your position. His eyes flashed. Is that what you think I'd do? It's what would be smart. I didn't come here to be smart, Sophia. I came here to do banking based on merit, not gender. He stepped closer. I can weather this professionally. The question is, can you? I thought about closing the store, repaying what I owed, protecting my reputation and Emma's. Going back to being the quiet widow who knew her place. The thought made me physically ill. I didn't do anything wrong, I said. I know. But sometimes, doing right costs anyway. Yes, he said quietly. It does. We stood there in my storeroom, surrounded by inventory I'd ordered carefully and shelves I'd arranged efficiently. And I realized something. This wasn't about business anymore. This was about whether women deserved equal treatment at all. My success challenged that, so they were going to destroy me. Not because I'd failed, but because I'd succeeded. What do we do? I asked. I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. He said we, not you. We. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the ledgers open. 5 months in, 1 month until the loan was due. I had the money to repay it. My numbers were solid. My business was sound. But my reputation was drowning in lies. Emma found me there at midnight, still staring at columns that proved everything except what people wanted to believe. Mama, you're scaring me. I pulled her into my lap, even though she was too big for it. I'm sorry, baby. Are you going to quit? Was I? It would be easier, safer. I could protect us both from this. But then Emma would learn that competence doesn't matter, that truth doesn't matter, that no matter how perfect you are, someone can destroy you with whispers. No, I said. I'm not going to quit. Good. She hugged me tighter. Don't abandon Mr. Brennan either. He's our ally. Our ally. My 16-year-old daughter understood something I'd almost forgotten. This wasn't just my fight. Arthur had chosen to stand with me. Walking away now meant abandoning him too. I'd built this business on merit. Now I had to defend it on principle. The question was how. Winter came hard that year. Cold seeped through the store's walls, through my coat, into my bones. Or maybe the cold was just the isolation. Customers scarce, whispers abundant. The whole town watching to see what the scandalous widow would do next. Mr. Hutchins stopped by with an offer. He stood in my empty store with false sympathy coating his words. "Mrs. Hartwell, I hate to see you struggling like this. These rumors, terrible business. Just terrible. I'd be willing to buy your inventory. Not full price. Of course. Market values dropped. But enough to clear your obligation to the bank." He named a figure that was insultingly low. "My inventory is worth 3 times that." Was worth. Before all this unpleasantness, he shrugged. "I'm trying to help. Give you a graceful exit." Graceful exit. Code 4. Admit defeat. Prove them right. Go back to being invisible. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Hutchins. I'll decline." After he left, I stood alone in the cold store and let myself feel it. The fear, the exhaustion, the bone-deep weariness of fighting every single day just to exist in a space I'd earned. My ledger showed I'd make the loan payment. 6 months of perfect business management. Ahead of projections. Satisfied customers. And immaculate books. None of it mattered. They were going to destroy me anyway. And Arthur with me. Maybe they were right. Not about my competence, I knew my worth there. But about the price. Maybe the cost of progress was too high. Maybe I should protect Emma from this, protect Arthur, protect myself. I sat on the floor of my store, surrounded by inventory I'd chosen carefully and organized efficiently. And cried. Just let myself cry for the first time since this started. I was so tired of being brave, tired of being perfect, tired of having to prove myself worthy of basic respect. The door opened. I looked up, expecting Emma. It was Arthur. He stood there in his wool coat, snowflakes melting on his shoulders, looking at me crying on my store floor. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sat down beside me, didn't say anything, just sat there in the cold while I cried. "I'm sorry," I finally managed. "For what?" "For getting you into this mess." "Sophia." He waited until I looked at him. "You didn't get me into anything. I chose this. Choosing merit over prejudice isn't a mess. It's the right thing to do." "Even if it costs you everything?" "Yes." No hesitation. Because if I choose wrong here, if I let them bully us both into submission, then everything I believe about fair business practice means nothing. Us. Both. The words wrapped around something in my chest. "I don't know if I can keep fighting," I admitted. "Then rest. But don't quit." I thought about Emma's words. Don't abandon our ally. Don't abandon yourself. I thought about Thomas's last words to me. Fever weak but certain. You're the smartest person I know, Sophia. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I'd been so focused on proving others wrong. Maybe it was time to prove myself right. Not for them, for me, for Emma, for every woman who'd come after, knocking on doors that should have been open all along. "I need to make them see," I said slowly. "The numbers don't lie. If I can make them look at the numbers instead of the gossip." Arthur was quiet, thinking. Then, transparency. What? Make it public. All of it. The loan terms, your repayment record, your profit margins. Every transaction documented and available for review. They can't sustain lies in the face of complete transparency. It was risky. Exposing everything meant exposing any mistake, any weakness. But it also meant undeniable truth. Public accounting. I tested the words. Saturday. Give people time to come. I'll review the documents beforehand. Make sure everything's in order. You do that? He looked at me with those steady gray eyes. Sophia, I do considerably more than that. But this is your fight to choose. I'm just standing with you while you fight it. Standing with. not fighting for. The distinction mattered. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift. Not hope. I was still too scared for hope, but determination. Stubborn, free determination. Okay, I said. Let's show them the numbers. Arthur helped me stand, and for a moment we just looked at each other. Two people who chosen principle over ease, truth over comfort. Whatever happened next, we'd face it together. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For seeing me, even when it cost you. His hand tightened on mine. You're worth seeing, Sophia, and the cost is worth paying. After he left, I sat down with my ledgers and started preparing. If they wanted to examine my business, I'd give them everything. Every number, every transaction, every proof of competence they'd tried to ignore. I'd been perfect for 5 months. Time to show them exactly how perfect. I placed the advertisement in the newspaper myself. Hartwell General Store, complete financial disclosure Saturday, 2 p.m. All citizens welcome to review business records, loan terms, and repayment schedule. Transparency defeats slander. Saturday came cold and bright. I arrived at the bank early. Arthur had offered the larger space when I explained what I planned. Emma helped me arrange tables with ledgers, receipts, inventory records, the loan document itself. Are you scared, Mama? She asked. Terrified, but scared doesn't mean wrong. People started arriving at 1:30, curiosity mostly. Mrs. Patterson came, and Mrs. Jensen, and the ranch wives. The men came too, farmers, merchants, the board members. Mr. Hutchins arrived looking smug. Mr. Davies, Mr. Carmichael, half the town cramming into the bank to watch. At exactly 2 p.m., I stood. My hands were shaking, so I gripped the table edge. Thank you all for coming. You've heard rumors about impropriety between myself and Mr. Brennan regarding my business loan. Today, I'm providing complete transparency. Every document is here for your review. I gestured to the tables. Here are my loan terms, $400 at 8% interest, to be repaid in 6 months with monthly reviews. These are stricter terms than standard loans, higher interest, shorter repayment period. Here is the original application that was denied by the board. Here is Mr. Brennan's approval using his discretionary authority. I moved to the next table. Here are my business ledgers, every purchase, every sale, every penny accounted for. My inventory turn, profit margins, and customer satisfaction rates. You're welcome to verify any transaction. Someone in the crowd, one of the board members, spoke up. How do we know these numbers are real? Arthur stepped forward. I've reviewed every entry, as have my quarterly audits. The numbers are accurate. I opened the cash box. Here is my loan repayment. $450, full principal, 6 months of interest, paid 1 month early. The crowd went silent. I could hear the clock ticking. 6 months ago, I asked for a loan to start a business. I was denied because of my gender, not my qualifications. Mr. Brennan approved the loan based on merit. This is the result. 6 months of profitable operation, perfect repayment record, and satisfied customers. Mrs. Jensen stood. I've bought from Hartwell since she opened. Best service in town. Fair prices, honest measurements, good quality. I don't care what people whisper. I care that she knows her business. Another voice, a rancher I'd helped last month. She advised me on harness repairs, saved me $20. Hutchins would have sold me new when I just needed fixing. That's good business sense. Arthur addressed the board directly. Gentlemen, you expressed concerns about precedent. Here's the precedent I've established. Qualified borrowers receive loans based on financial merit, regardless of gender. Mrs. Hartwell's success validates that assessment. Denying her would have cost this bank a profitable investment and retained our prejudice. That would have been poor business practice. Mr. Carmichael, the old banker, stood slowly. The numbers are sound. Another board member added, grudgingly. Better than sound. She's ahead of projections. I found my voice again. I didn't need special favors. I needed someone to stop standing in my way. Mr. Brennan did that, not because I'm a woman who needed help, but because I'm a business person who deserved assessment on merit. Every woman here deserves the same. The room was quiet. Then Emma stepped forward, young and fierce. My mother taught me that competence has no gender. She proved it with these numbers. You can keep lying, or you can admit you were wrong. From the back, Mr. Hutchins spoke up, and his voice had lost its smugness. What do you want from us, Mrs. Hartwell? I looked at him, at all of them. I want you to judge me on what I've done, not what you assumed I couldn't do. I want my daughter to grow up in a world where her intelligence matters more than her sex. I want other women to have the chance I fought for. I paused. But mostly, I want you to look at these ledgers and admit what you see. A successful business, run competently by someone you said couldn't do it. The numbers don't lie. I'm asking you to stop lying too. Arthur stepped beside me. The board will vote Monday on whether to continue my employment. I'm asking you to consider, would you rather have a bank that profits from merit or one that loses money defending prejudice? The crowd shifted, uncomfortable. People looked at the ledgers, at each other, at me standing there with 6 months of proof spread across tables. Finally, one of the board members, Mr. Thompson, owner of the feed store, spoke. I move that we acknowledge Mrs. Hartwell's loan was approved on sound financial basis and that her repayment record vindicates Mr. Brennan's judgment. Another board member seconded. The vote was quick, unanimous. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. It was enough. As people filed out, some stopped to look at the ledgers. Some congratulated me stiffly. Some just left, unable to admit they'd been wrong, but unable to deny the evidence either. Mrs. Jensen squeezed my hand. You did good, Sophia. Emma hugged me tight. You did more than good, Mama. You changed things. When the room finally emptied, it was just Arthur and me and 6 months of documented competence spread across tables. You didn't need to repay early, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Had to prove it wasn't charity or favor. It was investment in sound business. I looked at him. Thank you for believing the numbers. Thank you for making them impossible to ignore. We stood there in the winter light, and I felt something release in my chest. I'd won. Not by being exceptional, by being competent and having one person measure that competence fairly. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Spring came slowly to Kansas, but it came. 6 months after the public accounting, my store was thriving. Word had spread beyond our town. Women came from neighboring counties to shop, to ask advice, to see proof that female business ownership could succeed. 3 women had applied for business loans at Arthur's bank. He evaluated each on merit. 2 approved. 1 denied for a weak business plan. Gender was irrelevant to the decision. That, more than anything, felt like victory. I was restocking the fabric bolts when Arthur arrived, not in his usual afternoon slot, but during the quiet morning hours. He held a book, nervous in a way I'd never seen him.
Sophia, may I speak with you?
Emma materialized from nowhere, suddenly very interested in sweeping the already clean floor. Emma? I said pointedly. She grinned. I'll be in the back. Inventory. Very thorough inventory. I turned to Arthur. What can I do for you? He set the book down. Poetry, I noticed. Browning. I've been thinking about partnerships. Business partnerships? All kinds. He met my eyes. I've learned more about sound business from watching you these past months than I learned in 4 years in Boston. Your approach to customer service, inventory management, community relations, it's brilliant, intuitive in ways formal education never taught me. Thank you. I wasn't sure where this was going. I find myself wanting to continue learning from you, about business, about Kansas, about... He paused. About everything.
As your husband, if you'll have me. My breath stopped. Arthur. I know this is sudden, but nothing about what we've built together has been conventional. Why should this be? He took my hand carefully. I'm not offering rescue, Sophia. I'm asking for partnership, equal partnership. Your store remains yours, my work remains mine. Our life becomes ours. I looked at this man who'd seen my competence when everyone else saw only my gender, who'd risked his career for principle, who'd stood beside me through rumors and isolation and public reckoning. I've built something myself, I said slowly. I won't absorb into your life. I'm asking to merge with yours. Two separate entities creating something larger together, like a successful business merger. He almost smiled. The numbers suggest we'd be profitable. I laughed, actually laughed. You're proposing with accounting metaphors? I'm proposing the way I know you'll understand, through logic and mutual benefit and transparent terms. Emma appeared in the doorway, not even pretending subtlety now. Mama, if you don't say yes, I will be extremely disappointed in your business judgment. Emma? What? He's offering excellent terms, equal partnership, maintained autonomy, mutual respect, and… She grinned at Arthur. I've seen how he looks at you. The numbers are sound, but the feelings are too. Arthur had the grace to blush. I had the grace to feel my heart do something complicated and wonderful. Yes, I said, on one condition. Anything. We write it down. Partnership terms. Equal ownership of any shared assets. Maintained individual businesses. Clear accounting of joint expenses. I squeezed his hand. You taught me transparency defeats complications. Agreed. He pulled me closer. Should we shake on it? Or, I decided, and kissed him. Emma applauded. I didn't care. For the first time since Thomas died, I felt whole. Not because someone completed me, I'd already made myself complete, but because someone saw that completeness and wanted to build alongside it. We married in June, with Emma standing proud between us. The ceremony was simple, the promises clear. Equal partners, equal respect, equal voice. That evening, in the home we'd negotiated purchasing together, I sat with my ledgers while Arthur reviewed bank documents at the same table. Emma studied at the other end, occasionally asking questions about both our work. This was what partnership looked like, mutual respect, measured by competence, unmarred by hierarchy. Mama. Emma looked up from her mathematics. Mrs. Jensen's daughter asked me if I'd teach her accounting. Her mother wants to start a bakery. I glanced at Arthur. He was already smiling. Tell her yes, I said. And tell Mrs. Jensen to come see Mr. Brennan about a business loan. Bring a solid business plan. Emma grinned. She already has one. Says she learned from watching you. That's how it spread. One woman, one business, one loan at a time. We changed our town by changing one policy, one mind, one assumption at a time. It was slow, it was hard, but it was real. I looked at my daughter, bright and confident, growing up in a world slightly different than the one I'd inherited. Not perfect, not equal, not yet, but better, measurably better. What are you thinking? Arthur asked. I thought about closed doors and open ledgers, about numbers that didn't lie, and people who finally stopped lying too, about fights worth fighting and allies worth finding, about daughters who deserved better and mothers brave enough to demand it. I'm thinking about precedent, I said. How one approved loan becomes possibility, how possibility becomes pattern, how pattern becomes normal. Accounting philosophy? He raised an eyebrow. Life philosophy, backed by arithmetic. I reached for his hand. You know what I've learned? What? I was always worthy. I just needed one person to acknowledge it, then the courage to prove them right. Not for them, for me, for Emma, for every woman who'll come after, knocking on doors that should have been open all along. Arthur squeezed my hand. Thank you. For what? For teaching me that merit is genderless.
That good business means serving all qualified customers. That courage looks like a woman with a ledger demanding to be seen. Emma set down her pencil. Are you two going to be this sentimental about business principles regularly? Because I might need to develop tolerance. We laughed, and the sound filled our kitchen, our home, our partnership, our new life built on equal terms. Outside, spring rain began falling, gentle and persistent, nourishing the ground, making things grow. Inside, we worked side by side, teaching, learning, building something that would outlast us all. Turns out, prejudice is expensive, inclusion is profitable. And merit is genderless, timeless, and absolutely worth fighting for.